One of the biggest challenges for environmentalism is to stop sort of looking back to, pristine nature in its old form and sort of going back to the land and this idea that we'll restore nature to some state it was in before, and to really look forward and think about, what kind of world do we want to create, what kind of nature do we want to live in this century, and how can we unleash human innovation to achieve that. And so not just thinking about our challenges as regulating human activity, stopping human impact on the environment, protecting pristine natures, and not seeing sort of human intervention as just a problem, but really thinking about how can we create a world where humans and natures can coexist, and recognizing that we've already had a transformative impact on the world, and in a sense we're living in the anthropocentric sort of era now. And so thinking about how can we create a world where humans and sort of vibrant ecological world can coexist, and thinking about the role of innovation in solving those challenges, and recognizing that's one of our greatest strengths as humans is inventing new technologies, and we need to do that, especially right now, in order to solve climate change. We've got to drive down the price of low carbon energy technologies as rapidly as possible, and that is most fundamentally an innovation challenge. So Americans for Energy Leadership evolved out of the work at the Breakthrough Institute in many ways, and one of the things we were trying to do since 2007 was build an expert consensus around the need for greater federal investment in clean energy innovation, especially research and development. And so we worked with, over the years to try to help build that consensus with other groups, and really I think achieved that, just in the past year and a half. And so we saw last year a lot more experts really embrace this new kind of policy agenda based on R&D in the aftermath of cap and trade, which collapsed last year in the Senate. And so we saw a group last summer come out called the American Energy Innovation Council, which is Bill Gates, John Doerr, Charles Holliday, several other sort of business titans come out and say we need to increase federal investment in energy research and development by over $10 billion a year. So from its current level, about 3 to 5 billion up to 15 or 20 billion. And so that, that was a really heavy-hitting group and really helped to kind of drive that consensus forward. And then in the fall of last year, we saw the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology also adopt that same target for R&D. We saw Bipartisan Power come out, which was a joint report by the Brookings Institution, the Breakthrough Institute, and the American Enterprise Institute. And anytime you get American Enterprise Institute and Brookings Institution on one paper together, it shows that there's real potential here for a bipartisan consensus. So when we sort of saw all that come together, decided that we needed to launch a long-term institution that could build a national constituency to actually translate that expert consensus into political consensus, because obviously we're still in the midst of a lot of budget debates, a lot of debates about the role of public investment in technology. But we think once we kind of get out of this current moment we're in around the budget debate, that we can build a bipartisan consensus. And so what we needed a sort of organization to be institutionalized in Washington, D.C., and that was working to kind of build a stronger national grassroots constituency. And so it's not just really a campaign, it's really a long-term effort to continue to advance the federal energy research and development budget. There are a lot of reasons you can support investment in clean energy innovation beyond climate change, whether it's energy independence, creating jobs, securing U.S. competitiveness in the clean energy sector, which is one of the largest growth sectors internationally now, and recognizing that innovation is really the comparative advantage of the United States. And I think that the report that came out in the fall, Bipartisan Power, getting American Enterprise Institute and the Brookings Institution behind this, indicated that even conservatives can support an R&D agenda ideologically. And traditionally, research and development there's been a bipartisan consensus around the role for federal investment in that area, as opposed to what conservatives oppose more often, which is subsidies for deployment, picking winners and losers in technology. Investing in the R&D side, is more amenable to sort of what they think the role of government is. So the Terawatt Challenge is the challenge of doubling or tripling global energy demand over the next half century, but doing it in a way that's still low carbon and meets the actually alleviates global energy poverty, which is there are over 1.5 billion people right now that still lack access to electricity. About 2.5 billion or more that get their primary energy sources from wood or coal, primitive coal or dung or crop waste. And so that's the reality, is that we have billions of people that are trying to climb their way out of poverty and achieve a middle-class lifestyle like all of us enjoy. And the only way we're going to do that in a way that can preserve an ecologically vibrant planet is to make low-carbon energy cheap and affordable, so that those countries can deploy it, whether it's China or India or the rest of the developing world in our lifetimes. I think my biggest worry is that the United States will not step up to the challenge and take leadership on confronting some of these enormous challenges, especially around energy and climate. And I worry that if many of us activists don't sort of take a step back to really build a politics that's built to last and is actually capable of unleashing American leadership on this challenge, that we're not going to be able to do that. And so I worry that sometimes many of us activists are so quick to jump in and get involved that we don't take a moment to really think about how do we build an effective strategy in a politics that can sustain us for decades to come. And I think that's one of the most important roles that the Breakthrough Institute has tried to play, is really providing that space and that space for dialogue and really challenging some of the most basic assumptions about the environmental movement and the climate movement and its fundamental sort of approach philosophically and politically. And that's sort of one of the advantage, I think, to the kind of agenda that we've been discussing today, is that we're really looking at some of the most basic political assumptions and trying to think about how do we confront this and build a movement that we can sustain for decades to come. Well, I think one thing that's really inspiring is just to see how many young people have really gotten involved in this movement and this sort of new approach, whether through Breakthrough Generation or other avenues. And I think there is a sort of recognition among the next generation that the old solutions haven't worked and we need a new approach. And so that's just been really exciting to see over the past couple of years, and to see that movement grow, ever more powerful. And I think it's also just inspiring that we still have so much, and we still have so much capacity as the United States to confront this challenge. And we still have so much innovative capacity to solve big problems. And just recognizing that and knowing that if we can tap that and unleash it, that we can develop the technologies and the infrastructure we need to solve this, I think is really inspiring. I think one challenge, of course, is always going to be, how do we take these ideas and actually turn them into political reality? And as I was saying earlier, I mean, it's important that we build, look at our most basic assumptions, do the kind of basic intellectual work to build that politics, but we actually have to translate that into political consensus and political constituencies, and that's an implementation problem, and that takes a longer period of time, and it takes a lot of investment and hard work. And so I think that'll be an ongoing challenge. That's one reason why we've started Americans for Energy Leadership, to really work more on the advocacy front, to really try to build more of that national constituency behind an energy innovation agenda. I think we need to do more of that kind of work going forward as we refine what our sort of basic what the modern sort of liberalism is, and then figuring out how do we translate that into real sort of American political reform.